What's shaking, cats and kittens? This is your boy Rob Lee from Mastermind Team's Robcast, here for Forged Eatery. You've heard us talk about Forge a lot on the show before, but here's the thing about Forged Eatery. Every ingredient is super fresh and maybe even forged from the woods that day. That's how executive chef and owner Chris Amendola gets down. A creative menu and hyper-seasonal produce combined for an unforgettable dining experience. Forged Eatery is located on 3520 Chestnut Avenue in Baltimore. Make your reservation today and tell them Rob Lee sent you.
Only a couple months now. I think I recognize her.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guests are Matt and Vaughn of the North Avenue Market. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. How are you? Glad to be here.
So this is a treat. I've been there a few times, and I've had a lot of fun playing the games that are there and all of this stuff. It didn't stay long enough for food, but that's going to change soon. I'm gonna get very loose. I've seen some interesting things on the menu, so I'm looking forward to it. Describe North Avenue Market for the fine folks out here that are going to be listening to this pod.
Yeah, absolutely. So North Ave Market on the corner of North Avenue and Maryland Avenue, the former space of Red Emma's, Baltimore favorite. We are an arcade. We do have a brand new stage we just built during this COVID era. We can't wait to get people on it performing. We do a lot of funky music, disco, world music, global stuff. We love food. That's our number one passion. And we came together as a partnership with Michael Schechter, who owns the building.
Sure.
And that's how we made our pivot from the Lost City Diner pop-up to something more permanent.
That's great. And I've had the food, as I talked a little bit before we got started, I've had the food at Lost City, and it's up my alley. It's definitely something I'm into. So I'm seeing the Secret Sauce Company. So ketchup, talk about ketchup a little bit.
That's all Vaughn's domain right there.
So I've been working on this amazing special ketchup recipe for a very long time, even before I started business in Baltimore. And this recipe is just the best. Everyone loves it, from Matt to family. And, Matt for years had just been pushing me to open up a sauce company. And, I needed him to do it. So I got him to move out from Los Angeles, which is an incredible task, but I made it happen. And thankfully, Matt came out and we started the sauce company and, highlighted ketchup, which was our first sauce and, our staple, our tried and true. And we now have a hot sauce and we are working on other sauces. This past year has kind of put a damper on certain production, but we have a whole line of sauces that we're looking to make and produce.
Interestingly enough, and that sounds great. Interestingly enough, one of the podcasts that I do is a comedy podcast, and we were just talking about wearing really nice clothes and said we were dripping sauce. And I was like, all right, we need to get this slang out there a little bit further. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting hearing about the sauce story, what have you. So the arcade, what was the idea going into coming up with the arcade? And how did it come together? I'm sure logistically is a thing, but I also know it's not just suddenly, we just had, arcade machines here and someone was cooking. It worked. It all came together. So what was the process of bringing everything together?
I think, at the end of the day, it feels like such a one-of-a-kind process. It's super unique. I don't know how often this happens. But when we were doing the Lost City Diner pop-up, in a way we were scouted by the building owner. And when we finished there, we were asked to come have a conversation with them about what to do with this space. And, originally we were thinking that, all of our time and energy was going to be focused on our sauce company or our commercial commissary kitchen in Waverly. And we weren't sure how we would, find the time to make so many things work. And the more that we got involved, it became like this marriage, this business partnership where we were like, no, we have to be here. This space has so much potential. We love this corner. And, we want to continue doing what we were doing at Lost City. And so the owner of the building, Mike Schechter, was like, listen, I need someone to come in and do the things that I don't know how to do, like food, entertainment, beverages, etc. And, he was the driving force behind arcade. We were like, yeah, that sounds great. We're born in the 80s. We love arcade games. And then, the conversations just started. Before I was in this space, I don't know exactly the extent to how much I knew about arcade games. Yeah, I had favorite titles and all of that. And that's kind of what we started on. Like, let's build a list of titles that we think are really going to get people in here, like the Street Fighters, the Simpsons, Ninja Turtles, X-Men, all the good ones. And, in that beginning process, there was another person involved who's still involved today, and that's Todd Blatt. He brought over his Killer Queen machine, which is a huge hit in the city. That's a 10-player arcade game that is so much fun. And since then, he's brought on another newer arcade game called Death Ball, and there's one more heading over as soon as COVID's over. But basically, we started out with just like, yeah, let's get all these vintage games, and then we'll have we'll throw some of the newer games in the corner for all the indie game fans can still come. And we'll just mesh those two worlds. Like, we want to have all that 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s nostalgia here mixed in with, some modern beverages, some really good food, and some of the modern games.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's like one of those things where you're hitting the nostalgia piece and you're bringing in people for that. And it's like, come for the games, but stay for the booze and stay for the food and stay for all of this like cool stuff that we're doing that's current and that's moving in this direction. Like that's really like kind of timely in that way. And you kind of touched on one of the questions I'm going to ask you a little bit later about some of your favorite games. I'm also a person from the 80s as well, and I remember what the arcade scene was in Baltimore in the early 90s, and you keyed in on it. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, going over there to Old Town Mall and just checking out a few of the arcades that were there. Usually we're in carryouts, so that food and arcade combinations always been there. So and maybe you've already touched on it, so if you have, you can expand, or it's like we can pass and go to another question. But what would you say, and maybe for both of you, Matt and Vaughn, so what would you say is one of your kind of aha moments that you wanted to go into business or go into business in Baltimore specifically?
It's funny, we had a conversation about this, after, we were talking about things like, what was that aha moment? And when we got to it, it was like 10 years ago. It was in Brooklyn when we were like first setting down and putting things on paper kind of thing. And it's like, was that the aha moment? Like, for me personally, I think our aha moment was last year, Artscape, when the place actually filled up with a ton of people and we had a big dance party here, and we did, a collab with Night Brunch, and we did a collab with 4 Hours of Funk. And it was like, wow, look, this place can get filled up, and people not only want to play games, but they want to dance, and they want to dance under our disco ball and have a really great time. And for me, that was the aha moment. But
I think there could have been so many aha moments over the course of so many years, getting the sauce company started, doing the Lost City Diner, first meeting Mike Schechter, great guy, so many different things. But, we had been focused for a very long time on trying to accomplish something like this. Me and Matt, since we first started our friendship years and years ago, have always found that bond. And it wasn't just something we would joke about, obviously. Every year, every time that we hung out, we talked a little bit more until eventually we started pursuing it. We ended up in New York, ended up here, and here we are now.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And one of the things, I think, kind of filling one of those needs, I loved 4 Hours of Funks, and I've gone to a few, and there were a few nights that I really won't bring up too many details on because I don't remember most of what happened, but it was a lot of fun, and it was good to see that it was kind of like at least the concept of that party and bringing together that funky music and just different types of people in one space was really cool. And I think it was something that what was missing once Wind Up disappeared or what have you, and to see that last year you guys were doing it and bringing it, and that's really cool. It's really cool. And it kind of hits on the culture thing. It brings in a whole nother stream of things. Like you said, it's it's not only you get the gaming, you get the food, and you have all of that, but it's people want to shake their ass a little bit, and let's do it.
That's all we're trying to do is set up that playground, have all the ingredients here ready to go, and then it just makes it so easy once you walk in the door. We're moving.
We want to get as many different people in here as possible, make this as inclusive as we can, and there's just so many different ways to have fun here for all ages.
Yeah, one-stop shopping. So touched on some of the current stuff, some of the classic stuff in terms of games. So what would you say your most popular machine is or has been? I know COVID's kind of maybe modified things a little bit, but what would you say it has been?
It's hard to say. I feel like we go through phases. There'll be certain weeks where everyone talks about NBA Jam. And it was, last winter, before there was supposed to be the NBA playoffs, and people were already organizing this NBA Jam tournament, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But every week it's something else. And, people ask for Street Fighter forever. We finally got it. And so they were, all pumped into that. But, I'd like to maybe talk about Killer Queen for a second, because it's so interesting and it's unique. There's only a handful of these consoles around the country. Most of them are bought up by, tech companies like Apple. So you'll never see them. So there's only a couple that you could actually come and play. I believe most of the time it's free. And it's just so much fun to, you can play with 10 different people, bring your friends when that time comes. And it's just such an interesting new game that people our age and younger are developing right now, trying to harken back to all the nostalgia from the 80s and 90s. And they're creating their own games that are they're just awesome.
Yeah, Killer Queen kind of becomes like the easy pick in that question because they have a league here. They come like 20 minutes deep sometimes. And it is so exciting, like so many high fives and just like really good times that they have. And I'm always sitting behind the bar going like, I need to learn how to play this game. So then I started jumping in here and there, and I'm getting better every day. But
it's tough, but it's fun.
That's cool. I'm hearing there you have, I was going to say Boom Shakalaka when you mentioned NBA Jam, but didn't quite get to it. But you have inclusivity and exclusivity in that Killer Queen game is not like wildly available. So just having that, it's just like, we have the league, we have this thing set up here, so come here for that. Just another reason to come through the doors. Arcade culture. So I touch a little bit on like what my experience was in the early 90s here in Baltimore City with arcade. So when would you say it's hit its peak? And what aspects of that arcade culture still remain?
Netflix just dropped that really great documentary called High Score. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but
yes,
that is such a great piece of work. I really enjoyed that whole thing. I mean, anybody who's interested in like seeing the development of culture, that's a great place to start. I mean, I think most people would tell you that arcades have hit their peak, over 10 years ago, over 20 years ago, whenever it was. For us, the peak is always like coming up. We could make these games just as great as any PS5 about to drop or Xbox or whatever. There's something about these games that the new consoles can't touch on because sometimes you just want to see pad graphics from back in the day. It helps you appreciate what we look at now. Like a 4K TV is so crazy, but you come and some of these games have like the old CRT monitors, and it's like, ooh, you can see that pixel.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I guess, and maybe it sounds hokey, but I guess certain things like from maybe your childhood or further back, it just feels like it has more magic there. It's like, I know what went into this, and this doesn't seem as refined and structured the way things are now. And it's like games now, to your point about maybe the PS5 or maybe even PS4, which, because I don't know anyone has a PS5 yet, obviously, but you get really bent out of shape when there's a glitch or something. It's like, this looks beautiful. There's a glitch. I'm mad. Whereas then you see a glitch and it's like part of the game. It's like fun for those old games. It's like, oh, wow, that's the part where the worm doesn't kind of connect. All right, cool. Let's skip this. Respectively, share an experience that helped craft your careers.
That's an interesting question. I think for me, 5 years ago, I started a food truck, Farm to Charm, in Baltimore City, which Matt, came out and helped me get started, set up my social media. Really was a big help. And that was my first real taste of business ownership and just grinding and what you need to do to do anything, and how much work it takes, how little sleep it involves, and really just not giving up and moving forward. And it was a very necessary experience for me to have to feel comfortable working and running a place like this with Matt. So, and I think Matt had his own experiences with helping me start the food truck, but he was there for a lot, and he had those same thoughts and and saw it as the first stepping stone in what we were going to do.
It's good. It's good to have like that support and have someone work with you. It gives you an idea like, all right, cool. This is a good thing. It's like, I'll look at for what I do. This is obviously not my day job. It's a thing that I do, but I want to grow and expand in it. And, I just look at doing some of the live shows as kind of like, this is a lot of fun. I'm here on the stage. I kind of willed this into putting in that hard work in those hours and that time, learning things on my own and working with different people who've helped me. And it's definitely good to get that support from someone that, I can count on. You're solid. Back to Lost City Diner. I have last few questions to pop up at Lost City Diner. So once again, food is great. So at the North Ave Market, are there any plans to maybe expand or add to the menu? I see the pop up for Big and Tasty or Big Softy rather. Big and Tasty is a terrible Burger King. McDonald's. But what are some of the plans of maybe expanding the menu or any changes to the menu that may come as things start to open back up?
Certainly. And, as things do start to open back up, that's what we will need to expand the menu again. Back in January and February, we were pretty busy and it was going really well for us. A lot of people coming in, especially on weekends. And at that point, we were expanding the menu. We had an entire specials board on the wall that by the end of it had maybe up to a dozen things on it, including desserts, things that I was making, different kitchen staff wanted to get creative and make, and it was good. We had a nice little rotating specials menu. At the moment, we want to be simple because we have to make sure that, we can sustain throughout this. So we don't want to get too crazy right now. Talking about, one or two specials for the weekend right now. We're debating a couple ideas. They'll be great, but so we have to keep it simple at the moment. I'm sadly I can't speculate as to when things will get busier again. Hopefully soon. Hopefully, we get on the right direction. Yes, we would love to expand the menu. I would like to get back to ordering fresh and local. Have a nice menu surrounded by that, supporting local farms and having items that represent the seasons.
Okay. I'm looking forward to my visit because, like I said, I haven't had a good burger or anything in quite some time. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to having like a joystick in my hand and getting loose on a machine. So again, these are like the last two questions, and then some shameless plug time for you guys. What's the favorite part of your job? What's your favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of my job? It's hospitality. It's always going to be about interacting with your coworkers and with your customers. Everyone that walks through the door becomes your family. Everyone that we work with is like closer than blood. It's like we spend so much time with one another that, in a social setting like this, like that's the best part, like meeting all these people, getting to know these people, seeing them come in again. Like when you get someone who comes in, really enjoys it, and then comes back again and then becomes a regular, it's like this holy grail situation where you're like, wow, that is so cool that someone loves it enough that they came here 3 times this week. I think that's like the favorite part for me, to like, we put all this out there and then someone actually comes and enjoys it.
Definitely. Watching people just have fun and enjoy themselves. Come to this space and really just love it. That right there is the gift. And kind of the flip side of that is we're creative people. We want to create, we want to build. And that's our goal, is we just want to build and create.
That sounds good. And that's one of the main things that we're looking forward to doing, just with all of this different stuff. And we all have just boring, uncreative jobs. Like me and my buddies, we're all like data analysts and things like that. So it's like, ugh. But as soon as I mentioned the notion of going there and playing video games, and it's like, yeah, just hang out in Baltimore and play video games. It was just like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Get your hoodies. Let's do it. Last question I have before give you guys an opportunity to speak on anything that you have coming up or social media and all of that stuff. So I this has been a good interview, and I think that one of the traits that I heard about your business is just outside of the inclusivity, outside of just being creative, just trying to just have fun and have fun things happen there. It's nostalgia. Nostalgia is one of those big things. I think it's a very successful and very motivational kind of trait that businesses use. So in that same vein, could you name 3 of your favorite old school arcade games?
Tetris for one over here.
Tetris. I spent a large part of 2019 trying to play Moon Patrol.
Oh my God, Moon Patrol.
Wow.
Simple game, real difficult. I don't know why. I think they just want my quarters. Even though all our games are free, a lot of these games are built to take quarters. So it's like some of these levels, I'm just like, oh, I'm never going to get through here. But yeah, Moon Patrol was a big one for me.
Right. And, we have these 2 games in here, which I didn't know about before Mike Schechter bought them. But one is called BurgerTime. So it's essentially a cook in the kitchen, doing what I do half the time. And then called Happer, which is a bartender just serving people drinks. So it's like, I'm going to get off work and go play these 2 games. And
Happer's great. And Austin from Charm City Meadworks came in one time and showed me he was telling me about this game called Nibbler. And I was like, oh, do we have Nibbler? I'm looking around, we don't. And then I was like, oh, let's go over to this. We have a couple machines that have 60 games in one. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, let's see, is Nibbler on here? We found it. And it's like Snake that used to play on your Nokia. Yeah. But now in like a big arcade machine, like Nibbler, I can eat a lot of my time.
Off time.
That's good. That's good. So definitely I'm going to have to, I think I played a little bit of Tetris there and maybe some Mortal Kombat when I popped up at the market. So yeah. Those are
I think we don't really play each other too much because I don't know where that could end up. If we started playing Street Fighter every day, it would get pretty competitive.
Friendships have ended over Street Fighter.
I believe that.
Me and my brother don't look at each other the same after some competitive games on like Mortal Kombat back in the day. I was like, that's 20 years ago. I don't care. So again, thank you guys. And here's an opportunity. Social media. Where can he find you guys? Where anything that's pertinent. Feel free to shamelessly plug your wares.
No problem. It's pretty easy for us. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. It's at Ave Market. We got a pretty sweet website set up right now. You can do all of your ordering from the website. And that's for pickup, or if you want to get delivery through one of the apps, we're on Postmates, we're on Grubhub, we're on Uber Eats. And besides that, we're looking into what we can start doing on Twitch, maybe start streaming some of these live gaming events that we wanted to do. We have some other events coming up. We're trying to put out a teaser right now. I think it just got dropped for a really small comedy show. It's going to be ticketed, 25 maximum people. And from there, after we see how that goes, we can start to build on these small events and work into something bigger, as long as, all the data in Baltimore, the rate of transmission and everything keeps going lower. But yeah, we're all over. We have a really fun Instagram page that we worked hard on. We update the story as much as possible with what our current hours are. We're kind of just taking it weekend by weekend right now. Expect to see more pop-ups, like Big Softy was just in here during football, and we'll probably do some more collabs with like Be More Best Seafood or Cocina Luchadoras, some of our favorites in the city. That's
fantastic. So that's it. I want to thank you guys again. I want to thank you, Matt and Vaughn, for coming on North Ave Market. Check them out, folks. Hit the socials and all of that good stuff. So signing off, this is Rob Lee for Getting to the Truth in This Art, saying there's art in and around Baltimore. All you have to do is look for it.